It might seem that the tiara is a crown of power, a symbol of absolute freedom and the highest status. But what if, in reality, it's the most exquisite set of shackles in the world, binding its wearer to an unwritten yet ironclad code of conduct? One misstep, a single breach of protocol, and the sparkle of diamonds instantly gives way to the shadow of a scandal that will be dissected for decades to come. Why can't one of the most coveted pieces of jewelry be worn before marriage and before 6 o'clock in the evening? And what secret code lies hidden behind the dazzling gleam of royal diadems? Today, we'll unveil the unwritten law that has, for centuries, governed the most famous treasures of the British crown. To truly grasp the genesis of these, at first glance, peculiar regulations, we must journey back to an era when the sparkle of jewels wasn't merely a matter of fashion, but a veritable language of power. The 19th century, with its lavish balls and rigid social hierarchy, served as the cradle for this intricate protocol. In a world where every stitch and accessory screamed of status, the tiara ascended to become the ultimate badge of distinction. Its purpose was to visually cleave the aristocracy of blood from the nouveau riche, those who could afford diamonds but could never purchase centuries of lineage. The architect of these rules wasn't a specific jeweler, but the very system itself, the monarchy, meticulously honing its image. The design was both simple and ingenious, to transform a piece of jewelry into a potent instrument of social control. The cardinal rule that tiaras were exclusively for married women carried profound dynastic significance. A tiara upon a young woman's head wasn't merely the equivalent of an engagement ring, signaling that she was spoken for. It was a declaration of her full entry into her rights and responsibilities. She ceased to be merely her father's daughter and became a mistress of her own household, a matron, a woman capable of continuing the family line. By donning a tiara, she embraced the full weight of responsibility and the privileges of her new station. The tradition of wearing a family tiara for the first time at one's wedding was the absolute culmination of this concept. When Lady Diana Spencer walked down the aisle adorned in her family's tiara, it was far more than a mere beautiful gesture. It was a potent declaration. The entire world witnessed that the heir to the throne wasn't taking a commoner as his bride, but rather a scion of one of England's most ancient and distinguished lineages. The Spencer tiara stood as silent affirmation of her undeniable right to stand beside the future king. It was a wordless dialogue between two powerful clans, sealed by the bonds of matrimony. With the arrival of Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle into the family, women without aristocratic lineage and consequently no ancestral jewels of their own, the protocol faced a significant challenge from changing times. And here, the monarchy showcased its remarkable adaptability. By graciously loaning the bride's tiaras from the royal treasury, Queen Elizabeth II performed an act of symbolic adoption. It was a gesture of monarchical grace and profound acceptance that instantly elevated the status of the prince's chosen partners in the eyes of the entire world. The royal tiara upon their heads declared, "Now they are one of us." Thus, the code of conduct, born amidst the shimmering haze of ballroom candles and the rustle of silk gowns, evolved into a living, breathing entity. Its original purpose, to create a visual code for the elite, understood without a single word, has endured to this very day. Every appearance of a royal woman in a tiara is not a spontaneous choice, but a meticulously calculated message penned in the language of diamonds, whose narrative began long before her birth. Let's momentarily set aside the protocol and behold the tiara itself as an engineering marvel, demanding a unique artistry not only in its creation, but also in its very wearing. It's far more than a mere jeweled headband. It is an intricate construction whose tangible weight must appear utterly weightless, and whose cold metallic gleam must seem a natural extension of its wearer. The true art of wearing a tiara begins long before any public appearance in the hushed quiet of the boudoir and abides by the laws of physics and optics no less than by the strictest rules of etiquette. The first and foremost task is to secure the treasure so that it can withstand hours of receptions, curtsies, and head turns. The tiara's base, a delicate wire of precious metal, serves as its skeletal structure. To ensure the piece doesn't shift an inch, hairstylists employ an age-old trick. They literally weave strands of hair into the frame. Lock by lock, hair coils around the foundation, creating an unfaltering anchor. It's a meticulous process, transforming the coiffure and the diadem into a singular, indivisible entity. But precisely where should this luminous splendor reside? Ancient tradition dictates that the tiara be worn not as a crown directly on the crown of the head, but rather akin to a Russian kokoshnik, angled at approximately 45 degrees. This secret, passed down through generations, has a simple yet brilliant explanation. Tiaras were designed for ballrooms, illuminated by hundreds of candles and crystal chandeliers. It is at precisely this angle that diamonds, cut with antique techniques, capture the overhead light and explode into 1,000 sparks, creating a veritable halo around the wearer's head. There's yet another subtle trick, invisible to the casual observer. To conceal the metallic base, which might otherwise peek through the hair, it's meticulously wrapped in a thin strip of velvet, precisely matched to the wearer's hair color. This technique creates the perfect illusion that the diamond patterns are floating in mid-air, springing directly from the coiffure. Brown for brunettes, golden for blondes, this velvet lining is the final touch, distinguishing the simple wearing of jewelry from true royal panache. There even exists an almost mystical method for pinpointing the tiara's ideal position on the head. To find that exact spot, one should place the thumb at the center of the chin and the index finger at the point between the eyebrows. Then, maintaining that distance, move the hand upwards so that the thumb rests where the index finger was. The tip of the index finger will then indicate the precise spot where the tiara's base should rest. This isn't mere superstition, but a proportion meticulously refined over centuries, a golden ratio that allows the adornment to perfectly balance the facial features. Thus, every single detail, from the angle of inclination to the color of the velvet ribbon, serves a singular purpose: to bring the inanimate stone to life. It is an alchemy where the strictness of rules gives birth to magic. A tiara is not an accessory donned at the last minute. It is the culmination of an intricate ritual where every minute detail is honed to perfection, so that ultimately the world sees not a woman in a tiara, but an icon crowned with light. While these rules have existed for centuries, their true, resounding triumph on the world stage occurred on July 29, 1981. On that day, millions, glued to their television screens, witnessed not just a wedding, but the birth of a legend. As Lady Diana Spencer emerged from the glass carriage at St. Paul's Cathedral, the world held its breath. And it wasn't solely about the magnificent gown. All eyes were captivated by the radiance upon her head. It wasn't one of the Queen's famous tiaras, but something else, something more personal, more refined. On Diana that day was the Spencer family tiara. This heirloom, belonging to her family for nearly a century, became her first and most significant statement. By wearing it, she was adhering to ancient tradition, yet in the eyes of the entire world, it appeared as an act of elegant independence. It was a visual manifesto. She was entering the royal family not as a supplicant, but as an equal, a representative of one of England's greatest aristocratic houses, whose history rivaled the antiquity of the Windsors themselves. The tiara didn't merely crown her hairstyle, it was the crown of her own legacy. The image forged that day became the gold standard. The light, almost ethereal tiara, with its floral scrolls and diamond stars, perfectly harmonized with her youthfulness and romantic aura. It didn't overwhelm with monumental grandeur. On the contrary, it underscored the bride's fragility and purity. The adornment became the final flourish, transforming her from Lady Diana into the future Princess of Wales, yet preserving her own distinct identity. She didn't dissolve into the brilliance of royal treasures. Instead, she brought the light of her own heritage to them. The reaction from contemporaries was unanimous. It was a stroke of genius. Newspapers and fashion magazines worldwide trumpeted not merely the beauty of the jewelry, but its profound symbolism. Diana's act instantly made the unwritten protocol understandable and captivating to millions. People suddenly realized that the choice of a tiara was no accident, but a complex dynastic language. Admiration mingled with a touch of envy and fervent political chatter. The Spencers had demonstrated their power and significance. It was this debut that transformed a set of aristocratic rules into a thrilling public drama. Every subsequent appearance of royal brides in tiaras was inevitably compared to this benchmark moment. Diana's wedding became the starting point, after which the world began not just to observe, but to read the language of royal jewels, striving to decipher the messages hidden within the sparkle of diamonds. It was a triumph not so much of the tiara itself, but of a tradition that, overnight, became the common heritage of the entire world. If Diana's wedding was a brilliant flash, introducing the world to the drama of tiara etiquette, then Elizabeth II's 70-year reign became its golden age, an era when the rules were observed with unparalleled grace and dignity. It was in her hands that the tiara finally ceased to be merely an ornament and transformed into an indispensable part of the monarch's uniform, a symbol of service. The Queen didn't merely follow protocol, she was its living embodiment. Her signature piece became the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. This light, elegant adornment with diamond festoons was her faithful companion for decades. We saw it in countless official portraits, on banknotes, and on coins. She wore it so often and with such natural ease that the tiara seemed to have merged with her image. It was her working tool, a sign that the Queen was on duty. She wasn't trying to impress, she was performing her role, and the tiara was part of that ritual. But behind the cool gleam of protocol lay a deeply personal story. Elizabeth received this tiara as a wedding gift from her grandmother, Queen Mary of Teck, and affectionately referred to it as Granny's tiara until the end of her life. This detail reveals the essence of her relationship with jewelry. For her, they weren't symbols of wealth, but threads connecting her to the history of her family and country. Each time she wore this piece, she not only crowned herself with a symbol of power, but also touched the memory of a beloved person, drawing strength from it. As monarch, Elizabeth II was not just the principal wearer of tiaras, but also their supreme guardian. It was she who decided which relative and for what occasion was worthy of donning a particular treasure from the royal collection. Her word was law. A single permission from her could elevate a new family member to a pedestal, while a refusal could become the subject of endless gossip. She held the keys to the treasury, and this gesture of possession was far more weighty than any diamond. The choice of adornment was never accidental and often carried a subtle diplomatic message. When embarking on a visit or hosting a foreign delegation, the Queen might select a tiara with stones sourced from that country, or a piece historically linked to the ruling dynasty of her guests. It was a silent language of respect and friendship, understood at the highest level. The tiara in her hands became an instrument of delicate political play, where the sparkle of stones spoke louder than any words. Eras shifted, empires crumbled, and fashions evolved, yet one image remained constant: Queen Elizabeth II, resplendent in a tiara at an official reception. This unwavering stability, this steadfast adherence to tradition, transformed her into an anchor, a powerful symbol of continuity and order in a constantly changing world. In her person, the golden age of tiara etiquette reached its zenith, demonstrating to the entire world that true greatness lies not in the ability to break the rules, but in the capacity to follow them with impeccable dignity throughout one's entire life. Behind the gleaming facade of flawless protocol always lurk human passions, ambition, resentment, and the relentless struggle for power. Nowhere is this more vividly displayed than when ancient rules clash with the formidable will of a powerful individual. The annals of Tiaras are replete with such hushed dramas, but the most resonant scandal of the 21st century erupted over an adornment that ultimately never saw the light of day publicly. The event in question? The wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. In the lead-up to the grand affair, the world held its breath, speculating on which glittering diadem the bride would choose. Behind the scenes, however, a simmering drama unfolded, one that would later leak to the press and foreshadow future conflicts. Numerous reports suggest Meghan had set her sights on one of the collection's most legendary tiaras, the Vladimir. This jewel, possessing a truly mystical aura and rescued from revolutionary Russia with its interchangeable emerald or pearl drops, was more than just a magnificent adornment. It was a poignant symbol of a surviving empire and a personal favorite of Queen Elizabeth herself. Meghan's desire was audacious, perhaps even presumptuous, and she was denied. The refusal was firm and final, delivered directly by the monarch. The official and most plausible explanation posited that the reason lay in the tiara's provenance. A royal wedding, particularly that of the Queen's grandson, was an event of national significance, profoundly entwined with British identity. For the bride to appear in a tiara, even one acquired by the British Crown, yet possessing such overtly foreign Russian origins, would have constituted a blatant breach of protocol. It would have sent precisely the wrong message. But as is often the case, a train of whispers and rumors invariably trailed the official narrative. Newspapers recounted tense exchanges and interventions by Prince Harry, who reportedly insisted that Meghan would get whatever she desired. If these rumors held any truth, the Queen's refusal was not merely an adherence to protocol, but rather a potent initial lesson in hierarchy for the ambitious new Duchess. It was a silent, unyielding reminder that within the family, treasures are not chosen à la carte. Instead, they are bestowed as tokens of monarchical grace and trust. Documentary evidence confirms the outcome. Meghan Markle walked down the aisle in a different, yet equally exquisite diamond bandeau tiara belonging to Queen Mary. Yet, the saga of the forbidden Vladimir tiara etched itself into collective memory. It marked the first crack in the fairy tale facade, revealing that access to the royal vault was no all-you-can-eat buffet, but rather an intricate system of checks and balances. This incident vividly demonstrated the darker side of royal splendor. A tiara can not only elevate, but also powerfully delineate one's place. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II on September 8, 2022, was far more than the end of the longest reign in British history. It was a tectonic shift, concluding the very era of unshakable protocol she embodied. More than just a woman passed away. It was the chief guardian of tradition, whose hand for 70 years had meticulously managed the splendor and order within the royal treasury. The world held its breath, poised to discover what would become of this legacy in the hands of the new king. The answer arrived, resounding and unexpected, during preparations for the greatest event of the new reign, the coronation of King Charles III. Traditionally, this occasion should have been an apotheosis of sartorial splendor, a veritable sea of diamonds and historic diadems gracing the heads of all aristocratic ladies. But Buckingham Palace issued a decree that sent shockwaves through enthusiasts. The ceremony would be more modest, and the dress code, daywear. Instead of tiaras, ladies were instructed to appear in hats. This decision was not merely a cost-saving measure, but a profoundly symbolic act. In a world where the monarchy's approval ratings were no longer absolute, the new king deemed a display of excessive opulence inappropriate. The tiara, for centuries a potent emblem of divine right and unattainable status, was suddenly deemed too ostentatious, too dazzling a statement for the 21st century. It was a poignant farewell to imperial grandeur, an acknowledgement that the era had shifted irrevocably. On the most pivotal day for the British monarchy, at the very moment of its rebirth, the nation's greatest treasures found themselves cast into shadow. They lay nestled on velvet in the vaults, while their potential wearers adjusted floral arrangements and feathers atop their heads. This was more than just a pause. It was the close of a chapter, an entire era, one where the tiara was an indispensable symbol of power, concluded, leaving behind only one lingering question. Would these legendary adornments ever again reclaim their former glory, or had their golden age irrevocably departed with the last Queen Empress? After King Charles III's modest coronation, it seemed a death knell had sounded for tiaras. The world concluded that the era of grand splendor was over, and these treasures would remain relegated to the vaults for a long time, if not forever. Yet, the monarchy, much like its diamonds, knows how to withstand the pressure of time. And the triumphant return occurred precisely where it was most anticipated, at the first state banquet of the new reign. This event was not merely a comeback, but a true renaissance of tradition. In November 2022, Buckingham Palace hosted the President of South Africa. It was the first state visit under King Charles, and all eyes were fixed on the dress code. When white tie was announced, a ripple of hope spread among enthusiasts. This code, the highest degree of formality, almost invariably mandates tiaras. It was a decisive moment. Would the new king reaffirm the rejection of past extravagance or restore tradition to its rightful place? And then, the palace doors swung open. Queen Consort Camilla appeared first, a tiara with enormous Belgian sapphires, a beloved piece of Queen Elizabeth II's, radiant upon her head. It was a powerful gesture of continuity. But the true climax arrived with the entrance of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. She wore the celebrated love knot tiara, a cherished adornment of Princess Diana. In that instant, the past, present and future of the British monarchy converged in the dazzling brilliance of a single jewel. Tradition had not died. It had simply been biding its time. This return transcended mere adherence to protocol as it had in Elizabeth's era. It was a new, deliberate interpretation. If, for the late Queen, wearing a tiara was routine, part of her daily duties, now each such appearance became an event. In a world where the monarchy constantly justifies its existence, a woman appearing in a tiara is a carefully considered dynastic gesture, a powerful demonstration of stability and the unbroken chain of generations. Catherine, by donning Diana's tiara, did not just honor her mother-in-law's memory. She embraced her mantle as a Queen of Hearts and a future Queen Consort. It was at this moment that the value of royal tiaras, paradoxically, reached its historical zenith. Their financial worth, tallying in millions of pounds, faded into the background. What came to the fore was their symbolic power. They ceased to be mere accoutrements of luxury and transformed into vital artifacts, anchors holding the centuries-old ship of monarchy steady in the turbulent seas of modernity. Their return to the public stage proved that rules may change and eras may pass, but the language of diamonds, speaking of power, duty, and immortality, remains universally understood. So where do these treasures now reside when not gracing state receptions with their sparkle? The answer is both simple and complex. The vast majority of these legendary jewels belong not to a specific individual, but to an institution known as the Crown. They are safeguarded in the impregnable vaults of Buckingham Palace and within the jewel house of the Tower of London, under round-the-clock protection and the meticulous scrutiny of historians. They are the nation's inheritance, temporarily entrusted to the reigning monarch. Their status has fundamentally shifted in our modern era. These are no longer mere accessories, however precious. They are historical artifacts, standing in the same hallowed ranks as royal regalia. Each tiara is a silent witness to epochs, a physical embodiment of history whose facets reflect coronations and weddings, political intrigues and personal dramas. To wear such an adornment today means more than simply complementing an outfit. It means bearing the weight of centuries, being a living link in the chain of a magnificent saga. When it comes to their worth, the word priceless ceases to be a metaphor. Of course, one can calculate the weight of gold and the carats of diamonds, but this would capture only a tiny fraction of their true value. The bulk of their worth comprises what cannot be weighed or measured, their provenance. This is the history of ownership. A diamond on its own is merely a stone, but a diamond that once graced the head of Queen Victoria and then Queen Elizabeth II is, by definition, a national treasure. This is precisely why these jewels will never appear at open auction. They are impossible to sell, just as Big Ben or Buckingham Palace are impossible to sell. Their estimated value is woven from history, the artistry of past jewelers, and the fates of their illustrious wearers. This is not financial capital, but cultural capital, belonging to the entire British people and, in a broader sense, to global culture. Thus, the current monarch and members of his family act not as absolute owners of these treasures, but as their custodians. They are granted the right to wear them to uphold the traditions and grandeur of the crown, but with the obligation to preserve them intact for future generations. The monarch is not the owner, but merely a temporary guardian of eternity, adorned in diamonds. So, we return to the question we began with. Is the tiara the most exquisite set of shackles in the world? Yes, its rules are strict. Not before 6 in the evening, not before marriage, not in every country, and not for every occasion. But these rules are not a prison. They are the grammar of the language of power and continuity. Without them, the sparkle of diamonds would be merely a beautiful but meaningless collection of sounds. It is protocol that transforms an ornament into a meaningful, weighty, and unmistakably legible message. The main conclusion we draw is simple. No royal tiara is ever just an object. It is a concentrated essence of history, a physical embodiment of human passions forged into gold and platinum. Every diamond within it is not merely cut carbon. It is a tear of joy at a wedding, a spark of anger in a palace dispute, the cold gleam of duty at a state reception. It absorbs the emotions of its wearers and silently safeguards them for centuries. This tradition is not frozen in the past, it lives and breathes. Passing from the hands of Queen Mary to Elizabeth, appearing as an echo on Diana, and being reborn on Catherine, the tiara becomes a baton in the grand race of history. Each new wearer does not simply gain the right to wear the treasure. She accepts responsibility for its past and an obligation to its future. We gaze upon these jewels not out of idle curiosity. In their unwavering order and radiance, we see a reflection of our own yearning for the eternal, for that which is greater and more enduring than human life. In a world where everything changes and devalues so rapidly, the tiara remains an anchor, a symbol that some things are impervious to time. The women who wore them depart. The eras they embodied become pages in history textbooks, but the history, crystallized in their facets, remains. It simply awaits its next moment, poised to shine once more on the head of the one destined to become a new part of the grand legend. For ultimately, a woman does not simply wear a tiara, she serves its history, and in that service she finds her own immortality.